Welcome. This is the Film Inquiry Roundtable number 3. My name is Kristy Strouse. I'm Operations Manager for Film Inquiry. And today we are talking about movies and TV that we love, ones that we defend that maybe have an unfavorable critic or public opinion. So we're going to talk about plenty of TV and movies and hopefully get a little back and forth on some of the team and their thoughts on our picks. And then we're going to do some fun trivia, see if Kevin can remain the champ on that, retain his title. So first, I'd like to just, go around, and I hope also everybody watching is safe and doing well. And yeah, so how's everyone doing? And let us know where you're at.
All right, I'll go first. Manon the Reeper. I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of Film Inquiry, and I'm based in Houston, Texas, and doing well here. I mean, I can't complain. I'm safe, I'm healthy, and staying home and doing what needs to be done. So that's that.
This is. Okay. Go right ahead.
Okay, all right. So I'm Kevin Lee. I'm a writer at Film Inquiry for almost 2 years. Although I have not written something for them for quite a while, I'll get something up. I promise.
You're here, and that's also good.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Awesome. I'm from California, and I'm holding out okay. So can't really complain. Watching a movie like every day, every other day. So I hope everyone out there is doing all right as well. Yeah. All right, Jake, go ahead.
What part of California are you in?
Bay Area.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I'm also in California. I'm Jake Tropila, writer and editor at Film Inquiry. I'm in sunny Los Angeles. I got this nice natural light coming in through my window. But yeah, I've been with the site for almost 2 years now, and I really like writing for it, and I like being here, and I like you people. So I think this will be an interesting conversation to be had. Thank you.
So I'm Jim Ross. I've written for Film Inquiry for about 1.5 years now. I don't have any natural light coming through my window because it's 2 a.m. here in Scotland, but I'm doing this because I enjoyed doing the last one, and as I was saying before we started, time has no meaning anymore. I've written for a bunch of other places as well and done a little bit of radio work on film reviewing and worked for a few film festivals. So it's something I do on the side, but I really love and enjoy it. Hence the reason I've been doing it for so long and why I'm here today.
Excellent. Then that's you, yeah. Garrett.
Hello, I am Garrett. I am in Portland, Oregon, USA, and this is my first time in one of these inquiries. Well, not inquiries, in one of these roundtable discussions, and I'm a brand new writer for Film Inquiry. And I am in the process of writing my first article, which will be about stereotyping and bigotry in Tiger King.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
Yes, I hate that show.
So I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to the discussion today.
I'm just really happy that more people are now aware of Joe Exotic. Like back then, I knew about him because John Oliver would always talk about him.
Yeah.
Now everybody knows Joe Exotic.
Yeah, and I don't know if I want that.
I still haven't watched it, to be honest. Tiger King, I haven't.
You're not missing out.
I know.
Well, you're the one person that hasn't. Okay, yeah.
I can be a little.
I only watched it because I had to. I would save yourself the bother, to be perfectly honest. But
I rely on you guys. I let you guys watch stuff like that, and then I'll just read your reviews.
That's how Film Inquiry started. You just wanted recommendations for what to watch, and you had people write reviews, and now here we are.
Somewhere along the line, I also decided I just want to watch what I like and not really depend too much on what people are saying is good and what isn't, because otherwise I'd be watching Tiger King. So there we go.
Which sets up this roundtable perfectly.
Perfectly. Go for the segue.
And thank you all for being here. It's amazing. And Jim, I know time has no meaning, but still awesome to have you, even if it's 2 a.m. Yeah. And I meant to say I'm also in the state of Maine. I often forget to add that little side note. That's where I'm at. And I don't have any natural lighting, but it's dark and nighttime. But also, we just stopped getting snow. It's like finally spring has arrived here, which is pretty remarkable. I like.
What is
It's
your
been a-
opinion about how Stephen King writes Maine?
Well, I'm a Stephen King fan, so that's gonna be favorable. But I
Okay.
think he uses a lot of, honestly, a lot of real history and places in it.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Okay.
so I mean, there's obviously so much fantastical elements to it, but he definitely pulls from it a lot. I actually,
Whereabouts in Maine are you?
actually, it's central Maine. It's actually about 40 minutes from where Stephen King used to live. Now that his house is becoming a museum, but yeah.
Okay, no, I was just because my wife is from Maine, so I've driven from southern Maine through it to Canada, so I've been there quite a bit.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's right in the center. It's like 40 minutes from Bangor. That's where King is from.
Okay.
And what's the exact street address? And
So,
Just don't say dairy.
there is no Derry, Maine, but Derry's based on Bangor. So, and I
Is
don't
it?
want to.
Oh, I
It
didn't know
is,
that.
yeah. I was gonna say I could get into a lot of Stephen King lore right now.
Oh,
We don't
okay.
want to do that, but
Okay.
a lot of stuff from it is actually like historical stuff that happened in Bangor, including even the sewers
Oh,
that they couldn't find where they went. Like there's no maps of them. It's pretty
I
cool
see. I
if
see.
you like horror. But anyway,
Yes.
so to begin, so there's a lot of, and we're gonna go back and forth, so there's plenty of conversation to be had, I'm sure. It's just, I don't have one particular film like some of you that I'm just always defending. There's quite a few, I feel like, but I don't have one. But there is a TV show, and I really briefly touched on it the last one we did, and that is the show Lost. And the reason I bring it up is because it is a show that I have defended more than I think anything else. And I've had more conversations, more debates, arguments, hours spending explaining it. Yeah, it's it's a show that seems kind of polarizing. I mean, a lot of people do appreciate it, but I think it's something that a lot of people either love or hate, or they loved it in the beginning, lost interest, stopped watching. And it's something that I think if you really invest in it, there's so much to appreciate. It's a very detailed and interesting show. So it's one that I will always defend. Plus, I think people misunderstand the ending and a lot of what happens. And I think if you do take the time to really appreciate it, and I've seen it many times through, just like I have anything I love, you understand where the creators are coming from, and it makes sense. So that's where I'm starting at. I don't know if anyone else.
How many seasons of Lost were there in the end? He says outing himself as somebody who's not watched all of them, clearly.
There was 6 seasons of Lost.
Okay, right. I stopped watching it around about the time there was like a time traveling Glaswegian in it. I forget when that was though. I got very lost with it.
Got very lost with Lost. Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to say I intended that pun, but I didn't.
I remember seeing bits of Lost. Like I've definitely seen season 1, and I've definitely seen season 2. If I remember correctly, season 2 is the one where they're at a bunker and there's like a code that they have to punch in all the time.
Yeah, that's early.
Early season 2, yeah. And then I don't know, maybe I got caught up in other stuff and I just kind of stopped watching it. And then when I heard there's a lot of time related jumping, I thought, okay, I'm not into that. But then I also heard a lot of people who really liked how the show ended. So I mean, normally when people talk about how a TV show ends, generally the conversation seems to be about really good TV shows that have disappointing endings, right? But I actually don't often hear people talk about Lost. They might say the second half of the show is not as good as the first half of the show, but I never heard people who don't like the ending. And so maybe eventually one day when I have time, I can get back to it, maybe.
And that's interesting because it's actually a show where a lot of people do point to it. Like recently with Game of Thrones, you know how a lot of people were very obviously upset about the ending.
Mm-hmm.
People are like, "Oh, it's taken the reign from it's taken the whatever from Lost because that was the worst ending." So there's definitely some of those out there too. And just as a random side note, I met Daniel Day Kim, who's in that show, and
cool.
at Sundance, and we talked about it because I was just like, I have to. And I was like, I loved Lost, and and he actually commented about how people frequently misunderstand that show, and I just was even to say that.
I was too young to like be watching it when it came out, so I just kind of missed it, and so all of my knowledge of it is from pop culture and just secondhand. So, but it's kind of my feeling of what I've learned is that a lot of, for whatever it did right or did wrong, Lost really helped set the groundwork for the next decade of prestige television. And that, like, for whatever it did right or did wrong, the next, you wouldn't have the next decade of really amazing television without it.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And now I feel old too.
Yeah, I watched the.
I'm only 24.
I was gonna say, yeah, I watched because I saw. I was gonna say, because I saw the premiere of Lost when it first aired many, many moons ago, and I watched the first season, then I fell off, and I jumped right back in and caught up through season 3 and basically watched it to the end. And I think a lot of what people were frustrated by, which also kind of connects with a lot of the films that I've picked out for films that I defend, is that Lost set itself up as a mystery show because they're on this island. They don't know. There's strange occurrences happening. They don't know why. And I think fans just wanted to watch the show tell you what's happening. And I think that's probably what they misunderstand is that, it's not supposed to be this show and tell show where there's a mystery and then we're going to reveal it a season later as to what happened. I think people just got hung up on trying to solve the mysteries of the show and they couldn't really enjoy it for what it was. That being said, I'm not a fan of the final season of Lost. I think it's a wipeout of epic proportions. But it is really good. I when I watched it for the first 5, I will say. So I'd be curious to see how it holds up if I were to revisit it today.
I think Garrett's point about it kicking off prestige television is a good one because I remember watching the first episode of Lost on British television, and that was kind of unusual at the time. Like, because I think Channel 4 had The Sopranos, but like The Wire didn't come to Britain on television or anything like that for ages, at least that I can remember. Whereas I remember watching Lost when it premiered on UK television all the way through, and I've got the first few seasons on DVD. I forget which ones they are, hence the question about how many seasons there were at the end. I've never ended up watching it to the end, but I remember at the start really being blown away by it. It was a lot more, it just seemed a lot grander and a lot with a lot more scope than most television I was watching at the time, which is why I find the way some people talk about it in its last few seasons interesting. I keep meaning to get around to watching it again because it does seem like it's very polarizing from that point on. But
Absolutely. And I'd love to get some, off of this. I don't want to take up the time anymore, but I would like to hear why Jake doesn't like the last season. And if you rewatch it, I would love to hear what you have to think about it. Definitely a whole conversation in itself. But yes. Yeah.
Getting Lost with Jake and Kristy coming soon to filminquiry.com.
Nice.
Yeah.
Who wants to go ahead?
Well, yeah, sure. I had I was thinking of approaching this through several different ways about films in particular that were not really well received. Because when I'm on Twitter a lot, I think a lot of the films that I wrote down here or mentioned, I think they're actually are well received amongst friends of mine and people who I converse with, but overall they're not as well favored. Let's see, what do I want to pick first? I'm going to go recent. I'm going to say I really liked from 2015. This might be a controversial pick. I really liked the Angelina Jolie movie By the Sea, starring her and Brad Pitt, which is them in a seaside hotel in, I believe they're in France, and they spy on a young couple next door who are on their honeymoon. I think, did anybody see that movie? I think it's really a strange but beautiful and bizarre film. It takes a lot from Godard and Antonioni, and it just kind of tickled my European film history funny bone quite a bit. But yeah, I don't know. Does anybody have any thoughts on By the Sea?
I do think
I
it's a
saw
movie
it
that.
at a. Sorry, go ahead.
No, of course, that's what always happens. Nobody talks and everybody talks, right? I saw it once, and it was when it came out, and yeah, I do think it's kind of a underappreciated, maybe lesser seen movie, even though it has these big stars because I think it's a movie that might not seem appealing to a larger audience, and that could have hurt it. But it's also, I think it's kind of a more intimate movie. I like it a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of just got tossed off as a vanity project. It's sitting at 34% on Rotten Tomatoes. All the films I picked for this discussion are all sitting nice in that range. But I think there's some really interesting stuff there. I would recommend it if you haven't seen it yet. Check it out.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting movie. I mean, was it one of her first that she directed?
I don't know if
the
it was.
first?
I don't think it was
think
her
it was
first
second.
film.
Clear it up.
I
She
think
also
it was
had that
her-
Unbroken
No,
film.
it wasn't. Yeah, no,
Did
it was
the,
definitely not her
Land
first,
of-
but it is
Honey?
such an interesting film because it is a little slow. It's definitely I found it particularly interesting, I think, because didn't they break up very shortly after that? And I felt that it was also a very personal film somehow in that regard.
Yeah, because they broke up, and I believe she also shot this after she had her double mastectomy surgery after surviving breast cancer, and this was a really intimate project for the both of them. And it's strange how that echoes in the film. It's like this couple who've been married for a long time. They're trying to save their marriage on this vacation, and it doesn't work out in real life and in fiction, which is really kind of sad. But yeah, it's kind of very unfair due at the time of its release.
I do remember that at the time when I watched it, I really did not like it, actually. But I think that is one that in hindsight, now that I think about it, I would probably value it more now rather than then, because then, I don't know, I think that's one that it probably will age well.
Yeah.
Also because it might be one of those films that people are actually going to look up and view after, with the knowledge that we have now about that relationship. And oh my gosh, they were the biggest star couple of Hollywood for years. So I think with that fact in mind now, it might be more interesting than it was then for that reason.
Yeah.
Even.
That's why
Definitely a
context
second
is
viewing.
important.
Yes, absolutely.
For sure, yeah.
Does someone else want to go?
I mean,
I've got
I have
slightly
prepared.
odd
Okay, go
one.
ahead. Yes, please.
They just indicate like the whole everything context is important. Because I had a little look, like just looking through kind of like, as much as I hate Rotten Tomatoes scores to see if there was anything that kind of stood out. And I must admit, I struggle to come up with something which seemed to be that I liked that seemed to be largely disliked. The one that I did find, it fits into that category of when I think stories about spiraling budgets get away from a film, and that becomes the story. And I don't know if I'm going to ruffle feathers suggesting this, but the film that came to mind me when I did this is actually the 2013 film adaptation of The Lone Ranger. Now, the reason I bring it up is because it was heralded at the time as like, and don't get me wrong, like this is not the hill I'm going to die on, right? I don't think this is the best film ever made or anything like that, but it just seems absolutely reviled, and the way it got spoken about at the time, it was like it had no redeeming qualities, and it cost so much money, and it's crap, and it's terrible. And you know what? It's all right. I thought it was quite fun. It's got a lot of really good set pieces. I think it's got that sort of reverence for that sort of like Buster Keaton type, physical action going on. It has a lot going for it, in my view, but it's just it got this. It wasn't maybe quite as good as people wanted it to be, and it had this enormous budget, and it was one of those ones where that became the story. And like, there's been loads of films like that, like Heaven's Gate, Waterworld, all these sort of things. But in terms of recent ones, that's the last one I remember where I think it was buried before anybody got a chance to see it. Because the story was, this cost a whole load of money and it's terrible. And it wasn't. It was quite good. I thought it had plenty going for it, but that just got forgotten, and it became kind of like who could come up with like the pithiest soundbite or snippet about how bad it was. So I have found myself defending that one on occasion. As I say, I don't think it's the best thing ever, but I actually think it had a lot going for it. But
the train sequence is pretty cool. And like you said about
but that's exactly what the sort of thing I'm thinking about. You know, it reminded me of the General and stuff like that. You know, as I say, I thought I had a lot going for it, but just it was, oh, Johnny Depp's got a crow on his head and Army Hammer's terrible, and right, that's it. You know, to the extent I don't hear anybody talk about that film ever now. It's not even a case of it's a hated film. It's just just kind of dissipated into history.
Yeah, sure. Sure.
But this is also a thing that seems to be happening in general. There is a critic consensus where someone at some point, I don't know how this happens, but they decide that a movie is bad, and then the hype can happen both ways for some reason. Some movies, it becomes a little shameful to even defend them. For this one, The Lone Ranger, which was so widely disregarded, and you're right, everyone was like, this is the worst thing ever, and it's but every movie has some redeeming values, I feel like. I mean, I'm sure there's a few that are just I don't know, even The Room, right? That became
I knew you were gonna say that.
Right, it's the perfect example in this case, I think, because it's the film that's actual I don't know, I think everyone probably agrees that it's pretty crappy,
but it's hilarious.
So it's interesting.
I know,
and it's also this conversation about what is lowbrow and what is highbrow, and that whole snobby thing about what is good film and what is not good film, which is very interesting in this debate as well, I think.
Yeah, I agree for sure.
I know that two things. I know that part of the consensus, critical, whatever, partly came around due to the whitewashing, obviously, of Tontos, and Johnny Depp turning what could have been. I mean, the character obviously has its issues. I'm not going to pretend that I am a expert on Native American representation in film, but there could have been an opportunity there, and instead it became a Johnny Depp character. And then I remember that also Lone Ranger was in Quentin Tarantino's top 10 films of that year, partly because of things like the train chase and other variety of things.
It's something I find interesting about it, because if I think back to the reaction at the time, the whitewashing and the controversy around Johnny Depp's casting, I'm surprised. What surprised me was if there was going to be any issue with that film, I feel like that one probably could or should have been a more prominent issue. But it seemed to be, it did all seem, at the time anyway, kind of centered on the budget and kind of what to me felt reasonably invented things about, lack of chemistry between the leads, and, it's overblown and blah, blah, blah. So it was interesting in the sense that I would have expected that to be more of an issue. And I think if it was released now, 6-7 years after, I think that would probably present more of a problem. But it's just, at the time, I just found it bizarre. That didn't seem to be the lead complaint. It seemed to be to do with the filmmaking itself, when in fact, if anything, it probably should have been the other way around. But there you go.
Yeah, I saw it late after the hype. I didn't go to theaters to see it. I waited for it to be available on rent, and then I rented it. And I remember finishing it thinking that was okay. I had issues with the flashback structure, because the way it was told, and I had issues with the movie definitely underusing Army Hammer. But then I admire the production design. I love the costuming. I like the set pieces. But when the movie's over, I never felt like it's good enough that I want to show this to someone. And I ended up feeling bad for everyone who made it, because I feel like they got hurt real bad because of how expensive the film was. And there's a phrase that some critics use. I know it's not the best phrase to use, but there is some sort of meaning behind it, which is when people ask, who is this movie for? And I feel like The Lone Ranger might have fallen into that hole of who is this movie for, and you ended up having not as many people going to watch it, then plus the film being so expensive to make, and then bam, it just goes into this downward spiral.
Yeah, I find the reaction a bit bizarre in the sense that, and like I don't think it's as good as the comparison I'm about to make, but to stick with like Gore Verbinski, like I mean, I don't think it's objectively any worse than Pirates of the Caribbean, which is like, you know, this widely beloved film. No, I'm not, as I say, like the Lone Ranger is not the hill I'm going to die on here, right? But it's more like, if you look at it, like there's nothing where it's kind of like, oh my god, this is the absolutely terrible kind of like the upside down version of this film. Like it's fine, and it's just it's interesting. This narrative about the budget and everything just snowballed into it being like one of the worst films ever. When, you know, there are a load of films that are a lot worse than it. They just kind of, you know, they get a bit of a pass, and then there's other ones that are, you know, much worse that, you know, they also get a bit of a pass because like they don't have anywhere near the budget. So it was just one of those ones where I feel like the narrative around it ended up more about the cost of the film and this kind of like snowballing critical opinion than anything to do with like how good or not it actually was.
So I think that actually puts in a really nice transition to some of the films I chose, because I have 4. I'll go through them really quickly. One of them involves whitewashing as part of the controversy. The other one involves over budgeting and production trouble, and that kind of surrounded the entire storyline. The whitewashing one I have that I've defended since day one, I defend it almost every other day on my Twitter, is the Ghost in the Shell remake with Scarlett Johansson. And it is a film that I understand does not have the philosophical depth of the original anime film. But when you watch it in the first, like within the first 10 minutes, you know that that's not what the film is going for. It's going for something way more straightforward, way simpler. It explores a little bit more of the practicality and logistics aspects of the world that they're in. And I think Ruber Sanders, the director, he does a very good job with selling the immersion of the world, and he just offers a different perspective to it. So I think the American remake is just a nice, not as deep, but entertaining companion piece to the original anime. And I know there's the whitewashing controversy for Scarlett Johansson, but honestly, the day I learned that she got casted as the main character, I thought that was perfect casting. And then when I saw the film, I thought she was really good in it. And so I thought I can't really complain. That's just how I felt, at least when I saw it. Also, shout out to the score. I thought the score is really underrated. Well, what do you guys think of that remake?
I'm actually also a big fan of it. I really enjoyed it when I saw it. I don't know why. I mean, you know, obviously, like with Lone Ranger, I think a lot of people just kind of find a narrative and graft onto it, like what Manon was saying, and that, okay, we're tired of Johnny Depp's shtick. We're just gonna, you know, hammer this thing until it goes away. I think that was the thing here, is people kind of grafted onto the whitewashing aspect. But I mean, as a big fan of the original anime film, I think it actually sort of does it justice, and it's also one of those rare adaptations that looks and sounds fantastic. I mean, I wish we had more movies come out like that. I guess the only other comparison would be Blade Runner, which is a sequel to a movie that's 30 years old. But I think a lot of energies are sort of misplaced when people dismiss a movie, and they kind of get caught up in wanting to see things their own way. But I think the Ghost in the Shell adaptation offers a lot of, like you said, a lot of different interesting perspectives. And plus, it's got Takashi Kitano in it in a supporting role, and who doesn't love seeing that guy in movies? I mean, he's fantastic.
Yeah. And one thing I appreciated about it is how it used the same set pieces from the anime, but because their story and plot is different, the context behind the set pieces are different. And that's just something I appreciate. You know, if you're going to remake a movie, just don't do a carbon copy of it, right? Be a companion piece to it, give a different perspective to it. And, you know, if it's not as good as the original, that's fine. Right.
Yeah, that was kind of my thoughts on it. It was similar to the Lone Ranger in the sense that I think there was a there was a bit of predetermination going on about how people were going to find that. Like, partly because of the whitewashing controversy that you've already mentioned, and again also the fact that the original Ghost in the Shell is again this widely beloved thing, and I think there's a lot of people out there who just thought this doesn't need remade. And it's, if you're going to do a carbon copy of it, then no, it doesn't need remade. But basically, if you are going to remake a property or come back to it after many years, as Blade Runner 2049 did, then you should try and do something a little bit different. It might not work, but as far as I'm concerned, if you try something different and it doesn't quite work, then to me that's a little bit better than just trying to do a carbon copy. Like the Psycho, the Gus Van Sant Psycho. I mean, it's basically like shot for shot. Like, what's the point in that? I don't really, it's stuff like that. Like, I don't like what on earth is the point of doing that? So, like, if you're going to do something and remake it, try and do it differently. Like, but anyway, but not to drag us off, because I don't think anybody's going to defend that unless someone's going to surprise me. But
Manon, you were going to say something?
What? Let me think. What I wanted to say was that I wonder if, had they actually casted someone else for that role, do you think that it would like done better?
Maybe because one thing I've learned in the past few years is before a film even comes out, there is already a narrative about it, whether it's whitewashing or production troubles. And the thing is, we live in this internet age where news come every single day. We learn more about the films every single day before they come out. And so by the time the film actually comes out, a lot of people probably already have their minds made up about it. And I think that's extremely unfair, right? Now, would it be better if they actually casted a Japanese actress? Maybe. I mean, I personally don't mind as much if the actress is Japanese. I just want her to be good. I just want her to be good at playing the role of the major. But then again, Ghost in the Shell is based on an anime, so it doesn't make sense how there's a white actress. I get that, but then there's also this really interesting video on YouTube. I forgot the name of the channel, but they went out onto the street. They interviewed people in Japan about the Ghost in the Shell remake, and then they told them that, hey, Scarlett Johansson is going to play the main character. What is your thought on her not being Japanese? And a lot of people there didn't mind. They didn't care. In fact, they all said they're big fans of Scarlett Johansson. They're really happy to see an actress of that caliber representing a franchise they really like. So I just think, the whitewashing is an issue, but there's so many perspectives to this, right? There's so many different ways of looking at it, and I don't know.
I mean, that's a bigger discussion, I think, because there's certain American cultural elements at play there, I think, with this particular issue. But let me, oh my gosh, sorry, my cat is about to throw my glass over, so I'm going to move him away. I think you heard him. He didn't like that. So I prepared one movie for our roundtable today, and that is The Cell. And I don't know if any of you do not like The Cell. So that's Tarsem Singh's film from, when was it? Yeah, it was 2000. And yes, exactly. And I remember watching that too young, probably, which is, I don't know why, but all these messed up films, I used to watch them way too young. And I remember just loving it. And I've watched it so many times over the years. And then early 2010s, I started getting into film criticism. And I saw that The Cell has a 30% rating or something. Like, I still don't understand. Like, I still think it's an amazing film. So I don't know if any of you have seen it or agree with it being a bad movie, or.
No, I like The Cell a lot. I think it's visually spectacular. Like, it's a very interesting film. But no, I enjoy that movie. We actually talked about that, I think, on the podcast that you did with me that one time. But yeah, I like this.
I'm a fan of it too.
So
I would also throw in The Fall as well as for Tarsem movies.
Exactly.
I think he makes visually. I haven't really seen what he's done. He did like Mirror Mirror, and I don't know if he did do that, but he did Immortals, and then he did a bunch of things after that, just kind of carried on his MO of looking good, but otherwise
it got so
received. But I think his first two films,
they're amazing. And
like his the Cell and The Fall are great.
They're really good, and I think that sort of Hollywood production sort of intervened, and they liked the visual style, but they didn't like the more complicated stories, and so they became more and more generic as the years went by. And I don't know, it feels like producer intervention to me, but so The Cell has 45% tomato meter and a 57% audience score. And something in particular that to me was so interesting about this is I read some of on Wikipedia, there were some blurbs from reviews, and let's see which one. Oh yeah, so this one was very interesting. So Slate's David Edelstein panned the film, writing, "When I go to a serial killer flick, I don't want to see the serial killer or even his inner child coddled and empathized with or forgiven. I want to see him shot, stabbed, impaled, eviscerated, and finally engulfed, shrieking in flames. The Cell serves up some..."
Sorry, that's just ridiculously
They're being so vague. They're being so vague, though.
Like, I was like, who writes this? Like, I mean,
sounds like he's worked out some issues there.
And it didn't end there too. So The Cell serves up some of the most gruesomely misogynistic imagery in years, then ends with a bid for understanding. So the violence to the women was too much, but then he did want the serial killer to be completely like torn apart and like guts all over the field or something. I don't know exactly what this guy was envisioning when he started watching this film, but good Lord. Anyway, I think that The Cell in particular is such an interesting study of someone who is a very evil person, but is very, very deeply troubled. And, you know, even a psychopathic serial killer at some point was a kid, an innocent kid, and then through whatever sort of horrible circumstances turns into the horrible person that they are. And it's not necessarily creating empathy, but yeah, maybe it is like an understanding of like what people are capable of, but also like where did they come from? And I mean, it's a very American comment again. I mean, I won't bash the American culture too much as I'm prone to. I'm sorry, but you know, it's this thing of like, we want to have empathy for the women who were murdered here, but then the murderer himself is like, should be shot and killed. Like, how is that? No. Anyway, rambling, but I thought it was really quite interesting.
Psychology of it.
Yeah, I think that this film in particular does that so well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really love it. I don't think it's like seven, you know, I love it. So that's my ramble for today.
It's a good film if you want like a visual representation of nightmares, because they go into this subconscious world where things like your intestines get caught up in barbed wire and it's not really happening, but the sensation of it is there. And there's a lot of bizarre, grotesque, but like stunning things like that. And it's also with that critic's review, it's like it just sounds like he wanted a familiar story where the ending it plays out in his mind before he even sits down to see it. And I think that's a misconception many film critics have, is that they just want the same but different approach each time. I don't want anyone to try to make something that is different or forces them to think maybe outside of the box. And I think the Cell, with all of its visual splendor, it allows for that.
Well, that's what I find remarkable about that part of the review that was read out. That seems to be a classic example, and I think a lot of the films that we're talking about kind of fall into this category, where I think sometimes people are very guilty of reviewing what they want a film to do rather than what it's actually trying to do.
Right.
And I think The Cell suffered from that. I think to a certain extent, Ghost in the Shell suffered from that. The Lone Ranger. I think a lot of the stuff we're bringing up, including Lost as well, to go back to the start. A lot of people, whether they're like professional critical writers or not, they end up kind of wanting what they want from it, and they assess it on that basis rather than what it's actually trying to do. And I think that that's one of the things that feeds into the reactions that happen for all these things we've spoken about so far.
Agree.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, the reason I went back to it recently was to the cells was that I was trying to sort of dissect the screenplay and like how it's structured. And one of the recurring comments was that it's very superficial and poorly written. And I did like a full deconstruction of the plot because I was working on a screenplay and wanted to do something a little similar. Also, then finding out that the budget was 30 million and that, anyway, that was a little bit of, I thought it was a small budget film, but it turned out to be way bigger budget than I thought it was going to be. Although we don't really see $30 million films anymore, like in that category. But it is actually really well structured, and it has way more depth than these people, the critics, were implying. Like, it has many, many, many layers, and I think that you're completely right in that they're watching something with the idea. They have an idea coming into this, like, this is what this movie is going to be and what it's supposed to be, rather than taking it in and trying to unpack a film and trying to understand what they were attempting to do. And honestly, I think also some directors like Tarsem Singh and like some others, they do like to pack quite a bit into the story that requires a bit more thinking, a little bit more consideration, a little bit more education maybe as well, to understand like what they're trying to do. And I think it's a disservice to certain films, for sure, to just cast them off as this is bad and it's poorly structured just because they didn't understand it necessarily.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's hear from Garrett. What's your pick?
You're mute, Garrett. There we go.
Just realized that. So yeah, I had a hard time figuring out what I wanted to do, because I was trying to think of, I've kind of moved out of the point of my life where I've I'm like, oh, I don't hold movies in as much as black and white as possible. And if it's something that is consistently bad, I'm just like, I don't really care for it. But I was thinking, and there's 2 or 3 films that I think 2 of them are so good they're bad, or so bad they're good. They fall towards room categorization, and one of them is Cellular with Chris Evans from 2004. Has anybody seen this?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
I think it's on American Netflix, I believe. But so it's directed by the guy who did Phone Booth.
Yes.
And it has Kim Basinger, Jason Statham, Chris Evans, William H. Macy, just like a whole cast. And the basic premise is that Chris Evans is right before he did Fantastic Four. So he's like young beefcake surfer dude in Southern California who's trying to impress a girl by picking up her band's t-shirts at Kinko's, and has frosted tips and everything. And he accidentally gets a cell phone, and it turns out that Jason Statham has kidnapped Kim Basinger because her husband, it's like a whole thing that he's dragged into her. And now if she's going to die if he hangs up the phone, so he has to go drive across Los Angeles to find where she's being hidden. And then the cell phone, the reception's jumping from cell phone to cell phone, which isn't nothing happens.
I knew nothing of this film until you mentioned it, and it sounds like you're pitching it on the fly to me.
And
like that's what it sounds like to me.
And like everybody, because he robs the cell phone store so that he can get like a charger for the phone, and so of course now he's being hunted by the police.
Of course.
And like William H. Macy is the cop who has 1 week till retirement, and he's going to open up a beauty salon with his wife. It's a delightfully entertaining movie. It's produced by Dean Devlin, who was behind like Geostorm and Leverage and The Librarians. I worked on a Dean Devlin film a couple of years ago, Bad Samaritan with David Tennant. I was
cool.
my first time I was ever working as a film extra. And Dean Devlin has the weird sort of thing where it's like, I will put all of this into the movie, and then the script's like, yeah, whatever, cool.
yeah, kind of, pretty much. Yeah. Have you seen the Hong Kong remake of Cellular called Connected?
I haven't, no.
I don't remember. I think the Hong Kong one came after Cellular. I don't remember for sure, but it's called Connected, and I highly recommend that version. It's very, very good because the performances are excellent. But I'm totally with you in defending a film like Cellular. I'm actually a huge, huge sucker for simple, straightforward, clock-ticking thrillers. Mm-hmm. Movies like Cellular, movies like Phone Booth. I mean, one of my favorite simple entertainment movies is Unstoppable, and it's literally about two people trying to stop a runaway train. Like that's it. Right. I think there is always that time where I don't feel like using my brain too much to dissect whatever existential philosophical things or whatever. Just give me a situation and characters who are really into it to try to stop it. Go. Right. So I'm with you on that.
I actually enjoyed John Carter a lot. I feel like that movie was so hated on, and I totally understand why, but I have fun watching that movie, taking my brain out.
One film that I think I think people have finally come around to it, but I absolutely loved it, and I saw it like 3 times in IMAX in the opening weekend when it came in 2008, is Speed Racer. I think that movie's a visual masterpiece, and I'm serious. I love that movie. It looks like nothing I've seen before and after it. No big budget movie that's been made since can even hold a candle to like how colorful and how much that movie just pops on the screen. It's stunning.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
Speed Racer.
I feel it took like a good 5 years for like the public to finally appreciate a Wachowski movie.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they had The Matrix
Right.
before that, but
that kind of makes me think of Avatar, which, by the way, I know is like widely loved by a lot of people, but I feel like a lot of critics, like it's like one of those movies. It's like Avatar, and like it's like a room of critics are gonna like jump on me for that or something. But there's a lot wrong with that movie, but it's also visually, obviously, very impressive, and there are elements that are kind of, again, take your brain out, that are kind of fun.
I enjoyed Avatar a lot.
I always tell people
when it came out,
every single problem you have with Avatar, no matter how valid they are, they have nothing to do with what James Cameron was trying to achieve with that film. And for that reason, even if you have issues with the movie, they should not be enough for you to say it's a bad movie. It just doesn't make sense to go that.
But that's the thing I find funny about Avatar, right? Because I like myself as one of these boring kids who really doesn't like Avatar, right? But the idea, but even as somebody who like, because I'm fully on board with the whole kind of like it's Fern Gully in space and all that sort of thing, right? But the one thing I will say about it is, if you think that is a bad film, you've not seen a truly bad film.
Yes,
right.
Totally
even as someone who doesn't particularly like that film, it's not bad. Like, if you think that that's a bad, like a truly, truly bad film, then no, I'm just not having that.
Exactly.
Like, no.
Yeah, 100%.
Maybe it's average, right? Like it's just like it's an average big budget movie. It's enjoyable, but it's not like it's not gonna be remembered as the best big budget movie ever.
Yeah.
But it's not bad.
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's kind of the flip side of the coin of what we're talking. Like the idea to me that until recently it was by far and away the most successful film at the box office ever. Like in terms of how good I think the film is, I find that a little bit confusing. Like I can't square that like in my head. But it's not a bad film. It's just not. Like, I mean,
It's interesting to see these things kind of come in waves because I worked at a cinema when Avatar came out, and like nobody said anything bad about it. Everyone was just kind of blown away that James Cameron did this and he pulled it off. And for like, I guess a year, everybody had Avatar fever. And then it became in vogue for the next few years for people to just kind of hate on Avatar. And I think that's how most of the decade was, is that he made this big budget blockbuster that became the highest grossing film of all time, and yet it had like no cultural relevance. And then all of a sudden Avatar became the worst thing in the world. And now that Avatar 2, 3, 4, and 5, or however many he's got in production, things are starting to come out about those films, like behind the scenes set photos. People are actually now starting to get hyped on Avatar again. And I don't know. It's just kind of weird how like the hive mind works with film criticism trends. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see when they do come out, how the reaction is.
It's like a pendulum swing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I like to throw a couple more movies out there. I mentioned one a while ago about a movie that got really bad attention because of production troubles and big budget. And look, it's not a good movie, okay? I don't think it's a good movie, but I find it endlessly fascinating to watch, okay? And that is Justice League, okay? I think Justice League is a pretty bad film, okay? The mustache removal CGI is just completely unforgivable, okay? But what I find really fascinating about that film is there's an amazing story behind how it's made, right? When you're watching the film, you could totally have a discussion with people about the production troubles, about how it shifted from Zack Snyder to Joss Whedon, about how Henry Cavill was busy filming Fallout and he couldn't get that mustache shaved. This is to me, it's very fascinating to learn another story in the background told through a film, because the film is the end product of what was going on behind the scenes, right? And so I always find it fascinating that there should be a documentary made about the whole production trouble of Justice League, and it should be played immediately. It should be played before the film, so you should learn everything that happened, all the troubles they went through when they made Justice League, and then you watch Justice League. And I feel like you will find that little bit of you inside to enjoy Justice League for how it turned out to be, because I think it is a very enjoyable disaster of a movie that still sparks really good discussion.
There's a good film screaming to get out of Justice League.
Yes.
Because there's bits of it that I quite like. Like there's that sequence, and the problem is, right, like you can tell it is fascinating to find out beforehand about this, right? Because then you can then spot the bits where they've had to remove his mustache.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like it's like you like turn the pillowcase inside out, and you can see all the sewing, in the seams and stuff. But there is a good film. There's a good film screaming to get out of that, because like there's bits of it that I think are really good, like the scene where like the Flash tries to ambush Superman, right?
Yes.
And then you just see the flick of the eyes to spot him. Like, I'm sorry, that's great. I love that. It was just about the only part of that film that I loved, but I thought that was great, and it's just. Yeah, but no, that one's a fascinating one, because then you can start to see all these things, and then like you can do things like look at the trailers and then look at how they completely change the color grading and things that. Like it's fascinating. It is. Yeah.
And it's a movie that I think could have been more. For sure.
Yeah, could have been more. Yeah, one of my favorite things about Justice League actually is how it restores a sense of hope in Superman, because the film, to me at least, for what it was, it did a pretty good job, in my opinion, in showing what the world is like with Superman gone, with all the heroes left trying to do whatever they can, and they know they can't do it without Superman, and then it creates this really interesting debate where Batman says we have to bring Superman back. Wonder Woman's like, I don't know if that's such a good idea. And that actually then starts reminding me of why Injustice is a very interesting video game, because of its story over how, when Superman gets too powerful, just how threatening can he be? He could potentially go from defender to authoritarian leader, and like you said, there's a really interesting movie screaming to get out of Justice League.
Yeah. Hashtag release the Snyder Cut.
So if the Snyder Cut actually exists and they actually put it out, right? I think that's another example of what we've been talking about, how people will be forming narratives before they actually see the film, right? I could not be more excited if there actually is a Snyder Cut. I will absolutely watch it with the most open mind. And I'm pretty sure most people are going to say it's better than Justice League. But again, I think this whole story of how Justice League is made, how there's a Snyder Cut, how all the troubles, I think is so fascinating. No matter how bad the movie is, it's very entertaining, this whole thing, this whole production.
There is a thing that I do want to tack on to that, actually, as another DC. This is complicated because I do not defend the movie at all, but there are aspects which I do defend, and that is Suicide Squad.
Suicide Squad, absolutely.
And the part that I defend is the it deserving its Oscar win for makeup, hair and makeup.
Oh, okay.
Because I know that was like the big thing of like, oh, Oscar-winning Suicide Squad, but in reality, actually, when you go, I looked at like the behind the scenes and like the makeup that they used for like Killer Croc and the prosthetics and everything of how they shaped, all of these superheroes instead of just using CGI and motion capture, and how they actually built realistic looking makeup palettes and stuff. So that's the only thing I'll defend about it, really.
Oh, wow.
Although it is still impressive because you've managed to find something about Suicide Squad that I don't absolutely hate. So that's a cracking job you've done right there.
Well, that's interesting because I actually do not think Suicide Squad is the worst DC movie that they've put out so far, because when I think of which film is the worst, I guess I take more into consideration over which one disappointed me more, and I had very little expectation of Suicide Squad because I didn't know what to expect. I just thought the trailer is really well made and it's villains instead of heroes. Okay, let's see what they're going to do. And I remember seeing it on opening night, and what I got was something that's really colorful, really sloppy, really unorganized, kind of cool at places, and okay, whatever, right?
I'm interested. What do you think is the way? Because despite the fact that I really don't like it, I also don't think it's the worst of the DC films. I want to know what you think is the worst one. Then.
Okay, so apparently this is a hot take, but I guess it's not, because the Rotten Tomatoes rating kind of agrees with me. But I absolutely, like, without hesitation, I think the worst DC film is Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Okay, because I think that movie is a colossal throwaway of amazing political and philosophical ideas about Superman's role. Where does he belong in the world? Why Batman sees him as a credible threat? I think the first 30-40 minutes of that film actually explore some really interesting ideas that really should have been in a Man of Steel sequel, not a Batman v Superman movie. And then the entire second half, it's no longer a Batman v Superman movie. It becomes this whole ramp up called Dawn of Justice. And then the movie takes a break from itself and puts in a Justice League trailer by showing clips of Flash and clips of Aquaman. And when you finally get to the titular fight where Batman fights Superman, the reasoning behind why they're fighting each other is so bad. And then the fight is so short. It's just I don't know. That's just me. Now I could say
I feel like
Ultimate
I
Cut
started
is
an unstoppable chain reaction there.
I could say the
I
Ultimate Cut
just
is better.
took the cooling out of the nuclear rods, and it just.
I could do an entire roundtable discussion about BVS. Don't get me started.
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty more that we could dive into. I don't know if you want to start the trivia or if you want to like throw out another movie trivia.
I'll
Yeah,
just say real quick. I'll say real quick
sorry, go
before I
ahead.
start the trivia. Showgirls is a masterpiece, and anybody who thinks otherwise is incorrect. Yeah,
Mic drop.
I'll drop. I'll champion
I'll throw,
Showgirls any day of the week.
I'll throw two more before you start your trivia.
Sure.
One I want to say is I am an avid defender of the Lost World Jurassic Park. I think it's nowhere near as good as Jurassic Park, but it's a really, really solid sequel. And I think the set pieces in that film are incredible. And I admire the film for being completely different from the first one. Okay, that's one. The other one, I can only mention it now because I feel like there's going to be another discussion that we got to have later, but we don't have time for. But The Phantom Menace. I'm an avid defender of it.
I think at some point we need to have like a round table just to like in defense of the Phantom Menace.
We could have a whole Star Wars discussion in general that could probably go on for a long time.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I finally watched The Rise of Skywalker, so I'm finally up to date on the the big movies.
How did that work out?
What'd you think? Yeah.
I don't know.
No, that pretty much sums up my reaction.
I thought it was.
It's the worst one.
Oh no!
It was so.
Guys.
I don't know. It felt like
Worse
such
than-
a
worse than
sad
Batman v
mediocre
Superman.
ending.
You guys.
I actually enjoy it. There's a lot wrong with it. Like, I don't hate it by any means. There's still elements of it that I enjoy a lot. It's just, I feel like that whole trilogy just got like sabotaged.
It
in a
felt
way.
like a sadly deflating balloon. It's like
Okay. So we need to have a Star Wars discussion eventually because the three films in Star Wars I defend the most: Phantom Menace, The Last Jedi, The Rise of Skywalker, and I'll add a fourth idea I defend, which is I do think the sequel trilogy had a roadmap.
All right.
Yes.
Well,
I do too.
I'm a fan of
let's
Hudson
table
Hawk,
that until
too.
the next one.
Hudson Hawk is a good movie too. I want to say it's a good movie. Unfairly maligned. All right. Are we ready for trivia?
Yes.
Okay. Here we go.
Trivia.
The rules. I will ask 10 film and or TV related questions to the group. The first person to say the correct answer will earn a point. Some questions will be worth multiple points, and some questions will have the opportunity to earn a bonus point. Are there any questions? The person with the most points wins. All righty. Here we go. Question number 1. Who directed The Nightmare Before Christmas?
Henry Selick.
It's 1 point for Kevin. All right. Question number 2. This is worth 2 points. What are the first names of Mulder and Scully from the X-Files?
Fox and Dana.
Correct.
Nice.
For Garrett. All right. Question number 3.
That's
What was
Jim,
the first? Oh, Jim. I'm
right?
so sorry.
That was Jim, right? I said that. Yeah.
I
No,
apologize.
I suck at trivia, but I can.
No,
I'll
you're right, it was
defend
Jim.
y'all.
You're right. It was. I got your names confused. I'm so sorry, guys. This is my first time meeting you. There's no bias here whatsoever. All right, here we go. Question number 3. What was the first animated feature film, and for a bonus point, what year was its release? Excuse me. First computer animated feature film.
Toy Story.
Toy Story. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that goes to Garrett. And
97.
5.
Garrett gets the bonus point.
Damn it.
All right. Congratulations. So Garrett is at 2.
95.
Jim is 1.
Wow.
Yes,
Okay.
95. Kevin is 1, and Kristy and Manon, we're happy to have you here.
Wow.
I'm holding back.
Hey,
I don't
hey,
want
hey.
to upset anyone.
Of
you
course,
know, with
of
my
course, yeah.
knowledge.
Question number 4. What is the acclamation used by the crew in Battlestar Galactica?
What was the question? Because I should probably know this.
What is the acclamation they use in Battlestar Galactica?
Frack.
Yeah, frack.
No. The religious affirmation they use.
Oh. They do say gods.
It's
Right,
it's an expression. It's 4 words.
Now I can only think of praise be and all that Handmaid's Tale stuff.
Yeah, I was about to say under his
You know
eye.
it.
Yes, exactly.
You could also say it's the catchphrase of the show.
To infinity.
Manon,
and-
I know you got this.
I know.
You got 4 words.
It's
the
not
first
so say
word.
we all, right?
It is. That is correct.
Jeez.
Good job.
Congratulations. Alrighty.
Thank you. I'm so happy you put in one, especially
Of
for me.
course,
It's
of
great.
course. Everybody gets a point. Kristy, this next
Yay!
one's for you. This next question is actually worth 3 points. How many acting Oscars has A, Leonardo DiCaprio been nominated for? B, how many has he won? And C, what is the name of the film films he has won for?
The
I
Revenant.
think it's 7.
Won once. The Revenant. And
I
he's
need complete answer.
nominated for 6.
I thought he was nominated
Wow,
for
you
something.
got all 3.
And I know it was The Revenant, but yeah, nice.
Amazing.
Because
Yeah.
it's What's
Wow.
Eating Gilbert Grape,
Yep.
Yeah.
Aviator,
Oh, Aviator. Yeah.
Wolf of Wall Street, The Revenant, not Titanic. He wasn't nominated for.
Not
Revolutionary
Departed, which is unfortunate.
Did he do Revolutionary Road? He must have gotten
Yeah,
one for that.
he I don't.
The
He
other
did
one
do
was for
Revolutionary
Blood
Road.
Diamond.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
Blood Diamond.
Oh,
Yeah.
Blood Diamond. That's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Garrett shoots to the lead with 5 points. Okay. Here we go. Kristy, this one's you. I think it's yours. Here we go. What is the surname of the family that runs a funeral home in 6 Feet Under?
Fishers.
Correct. Kristy gets a point. All righty.
Should have got the Leo one, man. He's my favorite actor.
Wes
So-
Anderson. It's okay. It's all right. Question number 6. Or excuse me, question number 7. In Wes Anderson's The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, there are several Portuguese song covers of which famed musical artist?
David Bowie.
Correct.
Oh, I knew
Go
that.
Garrett.
Go Garrett. I think Garrett's going to walk away with this one, guys.
Amazing.
But
Yeah.
there's still plenty of more points to be had.
I should also
Here we go.
reveal that I've been working for a bar quiz company for 2 years. So
Oh.
Oh.
I try to come up with these on my own. But okay,
I
here we
actually,
go.
have I actually have a trivia question I'll throw in there, but after you're done.
Okay.
If we have
Sure. All right. Question number 8. Which Joss Whedon TV series was spun off into a film? And for a second point, what is the name of that film?
Firefly
time.
Serenity.
Firefly Serenity.
I think it went to Jim on that one. But sorry, guys. Jim got that one. Good job, Jim. All right. Question number 9. How many Predator films has Arnold Schwarzenegger appeared in?
2.
I'm gonna go with 3 just for fun.
Anybody
Predator?
else want to try?
There's Predator,
Oh.
Predator 2, Predators.
Chrissy, what was that?
Go ahead, Kev.
1.
Yeah, I thought he was only in one.
One
He
is
was in the
correct.
original.
He's only in the
Yeah.
original.
Oh no, crap! He's not in the second one. Oh god.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
you're
no
thinking of
cameos.
Danny.
I was trying to see who would confuse that with their Terminators, but my trap worked. Okay. Question
So I
number
guess we're gonna
10.
get that, right?
Question number 10 for 3 points. How many Saturday Night Live cast members have won an Oscar? How many Mad TV cast members have won an Oscar? And what are the names of the Oscar winners?
Oh my God.
1 not nominated, correct?
I'm sorry? Yes,
One.
one. Actually,
Okay.
won an Oscar.
1.
Can answer this question any way you like. There are 3 answers.
1 and
One
it came from
bad
SNL.
TV person, and that was Jordan Peele.
Okay. Do you want to take a shot at how many Saturday Night Live members have won?
I'm gonna say. Oh wow. I'm gonna say 0.
Wow. Correct. You got
wow.
all 3 points.
Oh
Wow.
my God.
Garrett
Wow.
got the 2
Amazing.
high scoring points. All right. Well, I had a tiebreaker, and I just want to throw it out there for fun. The tiebreaker is, what is Mr. Bean's first name?
Oh.
Green.
Does he have one?
I don't think he has one, does he?
He has one.
Black. Pinto.
No.
Kidney.
I'm sorry. No. The answer is actually Mr. is his first name.
Ah.
All right.
Oh.
I was going to
Wow.
say that
Garrett,
jokingly.
9 points. Congratulations.
Nicely done.
Garrett, 9 points.
Congrats.
Walked away with it. Congratulations.
So I've got a question for everyone here.
Sure.
Yes.
What is the code? What is the code that almost always cameos in every Pixar movie? It's a letter and 3 numbers.
Yeah, I've
Is
seen
it
that. I wouldn't know it
Like
though.
C2336 or something?
Nope.
A113, I think.
Yes.
Hmm.
Good job, Garrett.
I should also say my brother.
Trivia game.
I should also say my brother works in animation, so he worked on like
Amazing.
3 Leica films. So
Oh, nice.
Oh,
Of course,
cool.
in
What were
Portland,
they?
right?
yeah, he's currently working with Guillermo del Toro, I think.
Wow.
Mm.
What were the 3 Leica films?
Box Trolls,
Kubo?
Kubo and the Two Strings, and Missing Link.
Missing Link? Cool. Awesome. Awesome. Kubo's
Wait,
great.
those were Leica, right?
Yeah, those are like.
yeah.
But he's currently working on Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, or production's delayed because of Corona and everything. But
Right.
And then, of course, for the final question, what are the 12 dwarfs in The Hobbit?
With
Well,
Hobbit.
I have it.
It's so funny.
Well, from last
Not
time until
again.
now, I know Philly.
Keely,
now.
Feely, Dory, Nori, Ori. I actually, right after we got off, I was like, oh my God, I know these. And then now I'm like, why is that something to brag about?
Philly Killy, Ori, Dory, Ori,
It's like, yeah,
Oin, Gloin, Dwallin, Ballin, Biffer, Buffer, Bumber,
Gopher,
and
Bumper.
Thorn, Oakenshield.
Yeah.
Just from
I think
memory.
Dwallin. Did you say
Dwallin,
Dwallin?
Ballin. Yeah.
They
Well,
always
actually-
rhyme.
do you think that they
Yeah.
ever got?
Congratulations, Kristy. You just earned 13 points. That makes you the winner.
Do you ever think that they got mad at
Perfect.
Thorn because his name didn't rhyme with all of theirs?
Probably they have some resentment.
Yeah, and he also has a surname too. He's Thorn Oakenshield.
Oakenshield.
Yeah.
All right,
We
guys.
should talk about the Hobbit films as well. That's going to make another interesting discussion.
It would.
Maybe we should think about that for some of our tables, just like theming it around like series or
Yeah.
trilogies, etc.
Yeah. We can talk
Alrighty.
about our favorite, our least favorite, and the ones we defend.
Like
Yeah.
trilogies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was
Franchises.
that was the trivia. Garrett obviously studied, even though I didn't send around a study guide.
Cheat.
Oh.
No, great job.
I
Very
forgot.
good.
On
But
time.
no, yeah, good job, everybody. Everybody earned a point. And that was the goal.
Nice.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait a minute. Also,
You're very welcome.
was the question, does Leonardo DiCaprio, how many Oscars he was nominated, or how many acting Oscars he was nominated for?
It was acting Oscars. 'Cause
Okay.
I did look that up. He does have a producing Oscar nomination for The Wolf of Wall Street too. So
That's what I thought, 7.
Good,
but,
good, yeah.
So
good.
very
catch.
good trivia, Jake. Thank you very much. As always, that was a blast, and I look
Thank you.
forward to doing again sometimes. Thank you, everybody, for joining. It was a lot of fun. I think we had some great discussions, and obviously, we could just keep going, but we'll leave that for future roundtables. And thank you all for joining, and some of you very late at night. And it's always wonderful to see everybody and see that everyone's doing well. And I hope anyone that watches this enjoys it and shares their own opinions, because I'm sure there's many. And I just hope everybody has a fantastic night. And thanks again.
Thanks so much. Thanks so
Thank
much
you
for
so
hosting,
much.
Kristy.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Take care, everyone.